Hey, this is Dr. Barry. For the next few minutes, let's discuss 7 iodine-rich foods. Now, you may already know from my previous iodine video that eating a diet rich in iodine is vital for all of your organs, for your brain, for all the glandular tissue in your body to work optimally. It's not optional. Iodine is an essential mineral. You have to have iodine or you will die. No questions asked. Now, there are millions of people who suffer from iodine deficiency in the world. Millions of people suffer from lots of chronic diseases that are completely preventable. And at least once a week, I'll post a video on this channel about how you can reverse those chronic medical diseases, the chronic suffering. And if you'd like to know about each video when it comes out, please consider clicking that subscribe button and click the little bell right beside it to enable all notifications so that every time I have a bright idea, you'll be one of the very first to know. Now, let's talk about iodine a little bit. I've got another video that I talked about how important iodine is to every mammal's health, especially all human beings, regardless of your age, regardless if you're in the womb, if you're a toddler, if you're a teenager, or if you are a senior, you have to have iodine to feel your best and to look your best and to act your best. And so I want to talk to you about food sources of iodine. I'd rather you not take any supplement if you can get the mineral or the vitamin that in question from your food. If you don't like any of these foods and you're just not going to eat them, I put a link to a really great iodine supplement down below in the show notes. It's the iodine supplement that I use if I'm not getting enough iodine in my diet. But I want to tell you about these 7 food sources so that you can try to eat more of these foods. First of all, they're very healthy for you overall, but they're also great sources of iodine. Iodine in food is somewhat of a complicated discussion because the iodine content in food varies based on where the food grew. So, if we're talking about things that grew in water, for example, sea fish have lots of iodine. Freshwater fish have very little, if any. Sometimes they can have some, but it all depends on how much iodine is going into the stream, river, creek, pond that they lived in. Again, with even sea vegetables, it depends on where they grew, where in the ocean, and also how they were grown. So, on average, wild seaweed has more iodine than farmed seaweed. Seaweed from certain oceans has much more iodine than from other oceans. It's very complicated, but if you incorporate as many of these 7 foods into your diet as you can, you're going to get plenty of iodine and you probably won't have to supplement at all. Now, let's go through the list. Number one, without doubt, is sea fish. And we could say seafood, but sea fish, any fish that swims in the ocean is going to have plenty of iodine in its flesh. And that's because our source of iodine for the entire planet, it all comes from the ocean. It comes from rain that was picked up from the ocean. It comes from the ocean breeze that brings the seawater that's been evaporated into the coastal regions and into the coastal soil. And so any fish that comes out of the ocean, from large to small, is going to have plenty of iodine. On average, if you'll eat smaller fish from the ocean that are not predators and don't eat lots of other fish, they won't have as much of the mercury and other heavy metal pollution that you might get from eating some of the larger fish like swordfish. But so any fish that comes from the ocean, from any ocean, is going to be a great source of iodine. It's also a great source of omega-3 fatty acids and hundreds of others vitamins and minerals that you need. Next is sea crustaceans. So any shellfish that comes out of the ocean is going to be a great source of iodine. This ranges from shrimp to lobster to crab to everything in between. Only if they are farmed and not actually grown in the ocean will they not be a good source of iodine. So any wild caught sea fish or sea crustaceans are going to be excellent sources of highly bioabsorbable iodine, which is what you're looking for. Number 3 on my list is seaweed, and this can be nori, this can be kelp, this can be wakame or hiziki. Any of these, if they are actually grown in the ocean, are excellent sources of iodine. And you'll learn in my other video that people who live in coastal regions or islands like Japan, they consume many milligrams a day of iodine in the sea fish, the sea crustaceans, and the seaweed. And again, like I said earlier, depending on where the seaweed was grown, which ocean, and was it farmed or was it wild, all these things matter as to the amount of iodine. But if it's grown in the ocean, in seawater, it's going to have iodine in it by definition. Next on the list, number 4, is meat and organs. And so any animal is going to tend to concentrate the amount of iodine it gets in its diet. It wants to store as much of that iodine as it possibly can, because all mammals, and indeed all animals, need iodine to live. They'll die without it. And so every animal, even if they're eating a very poor iodine diet from a part of the country or part of the world that doesn't have a lot of iodine in the soil, they're going to concentrate any little bit of iodine they get and store as much of it as they can in their meat, in their organs, and in their glandular tissue. And as nose to tail paleo and carnivore become more popular, people are eating more of the organs, more liver, more heart, and even starting to eat the glands again. And all of these sources are rich, rich sources of iodine, because all animals concentrate iodine in their glandular tissue because they need iodine for optimal glandular function. And so another great source of iodine is dairy. Now, again, this depends. If this was a cow that ate grass in a very iodine poor part of the world, then there won't be as much iodine as if this is a cow that's grazing grass on an island or in a coastal region. That cow will have much more iodine, or goat or sheep, in its dairy than it would if it were not in that area. Also, and a lot of people think that milk and cheese and dairy products are a rich source of iodine, and that's actually sort of true, but the source of the iodine might surprise you. And so if we're talking about a farm, not a farm raised pastured cow, but a cow that grew up in a feedlot or on a dairy farm where they're basically kept confined and fed grains, the farmers actually add iodine to the grain in a kind of a more organic, not in an inorganic form of iodine. It's not as bioabsorbable as if the cow actually ate iodine-rich grass. Also, the dairy farmers dip their cows' udders in an iodine antiseptic solution to kill bacteria and germs before they milk them and after they milk them. And a lot of the iodine from that actually soaks into the udder and to the teats. And then when they milk the cows later, when they hook up the milk machine, you actually get a lot of that iodine. Again, that's an inorganic iodine. You probably do absorb some of that, but it's not as bioabsorbable as the iodine from a grass-fed cow in a coastal region. But still, dairies always has a little iodine because the cow is going to concentrate the iodine that they get into their milk for their calf, because the calf, in order not to have mental retardation or other growth problems, has to have a certain amount of iodine, just like we do. And so the mama cow is going to concentrate that iodine into her milk. Next on the list is eggs. Once again, all animals have to have iodine. And so, one of the main causes of mental retardation in humans in the world is a pregnant woman not having enough iodine while her child is in the womb, and the child winds up with a lower IQ because of that. That goes for all animals, and it goes for chickens, ducks, geese, and even peacocks. They concentrate the iodine that they get out of their diet and put it into their eggs. And so, eggs are almost always a good source of iodine. And of course, the amount again depends on where this chicken, goose, duck lives in the world. Some will have more, some won't have as much, but they'll still tend to concentrate it in their eggs because it's vital for their chicks when they hatch to have that excellent source of iodine. Next on the list is any coastally grown plant food. Plants grown in the interior of a large continent typically don't have much iodine at all. But if the plants are grown on the coastal region, and this can include any plant, they're going to have a degree of iodine in them. You'll see a lot of information on the internet that certain plants, this plant or the other plant, is an excellent source of iodine. That's almost never true. The best source of iodine, without exception, usually by an order of magnitude, is an animal source. And it can be, like I said, the sea fish, and if you don't want to eat things with faces, then eat the crustaceans. And oysters are also a great source of iodine if they're grown in the ocean. But coastal plants can have a little iodine in them. There's no doubt about that. Now, there's a myth out there on the internet that potatoes are a great source of iodine. And this comes from a study. And I want to tell you about this. It's very intriguing. So the scientists who did this study, what they were actually looking at was biofortified potatoes. And so what they did is they put a lot of iodine in the soil that the potatoes were grown in. And then when the potatoes plants produced potatoes, they analyzed them in the lab, and lo and behold, they had iodine in them. And so what the whole study was showing is that you can put concentrated iodine in soil, and plants and animals will take up that iodine because they all need it to survive. But that does not mean that potatoes are a good source of iodine. Most potatoes grown have no iodine whatsoever. Only if they're in a bio intensified environment where the farmer actually thought to add iodine to the soil will a potato or most any other tuber have any iodine whatsoever. So that's the big myth out there on the internet, is that potatoes are a great source of iodine. They ain't. Okay. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to learn more about all the nutrition lies and medical lies that we're told that keep us chronically ill, you might want to check out my book, Lies My Doctor Told Me. It's available where all books are sold. I'll put an Amazon link down below if you want to check it out. And then also, I'm going to put right here my iodine video. So if you're like, yeah, okay, so these are iodine rich foods, so what? I don't really need that much iodine, right? I get it from my Umbrella Girl salt, right? Yeah, no. Watch this video and you'll learn more about why you need iodine and how much you actually need. This is Dr. Berry. I'll see you next time.